what's up? It's Rob Gordon, the wingman out here at beautiful Lake Paris. I was out in the water for about an hour. It was good conditions, but my hands were so cold, I wasn't really trying anything because I didn't want to fall in the water. So I said, let's get out of the water and let's film the talking portion of the swell riding tutorial. You know, it's a new season, and I think this is what a lot of people want to focus on this year is swell riding, luffing that wing and riding swell. Last year, a lot of people were working on their jibes, maybe some boosts. A lot of people got into winging because they want to ride those waves and ride swell. I was more of a freestyle guy, but I'll tell you what, the wave riding is really starting to win me over, especially living in SoCal. So yeah, let's get into it, and I'll give you the tips that I use to learn how to swell ride. All right, let's talk gear. I'm really only riding two foils right now. I got the Viper 150 and the Viper 170. The 150 is more my freestyle foil. Because I'm 200 pounds, this doesn't really glide me that long. And it's not super high aspect. It's only AR6. If I'm going to ride swell, I'm usually going to go with the 170 unless the conditions are epic. If the conditions are epic and you're just getting like huge swell, long period, then yeah, the 150 will work because you'll get enough speed and enough power. Also, if you're on an actual wave, the 150 is great. But if it's marginal conditions and you're a bigger rider, yeah, the 170 is just going to work better. It's going to glide you longer, you know, and it's going to have a lower stall speed, which that really helps too. Because sometimes when you're in between the waves, you need that lower stall speed and you need to be able to pump across to the next wave. Yeah, I think they were going to send me a Hyper 2 190, which I think would have been great for marginal conditions, but I don't know. It just never happened. They never sent it to me. I tried the Hyper 2 170 at AWSI. Other foils that are good for riding swell, the HPS 1050 is a great swell riding foil. It's really good in sort of marginal conditions. It really, really is good in those conditions. And it's still quite fast because it's a little bit thinner and a little bit wider. Just don't jump that foil. The 1150, it has a lot of low end. So that's the foil I used to learn how to sort of pump and just luff at all. So when you're first starting, that's a good option. Go like really big, slow, pumpy foil. The Delta Hydra foils, 850, that thing had incredible glide for its size. I tried it at AWSI. That would be great for riding swell in medium to even high wind conditions. As for the mast, the longer mast really works well for riding swell, especially if the conditions are choppy. It lets you get out without touching down or breaching. And then when you're on the wave, it just gives you more time to recover. And so I really like the Katana 95 centimeter mast if I'm just going to ride swell. And it also is really nice to do your tacks because you have more time. You get up high and it gives you more time. That is my swell riding choice. If I'm going to be also doing freestyle, I usually do my 83 because it's just so much mast length, especially I'm starting to try the back flips again. So I don't want the 95 centimeters. It's too much swing weight. The big key, though, is the thinner masts are so much better for riding swell. You're going to get so much more glide and efficiency out of the thinner mast. That's huge. Riding the carbon Katana as opposed to like the Axis aluminum mast, you're going to get so much less drag. The Axis high modulus mast is nice, but it's a little bit thicker than some of the mast. It still is very glidey. It's very stiff, but the Katana is tapered, and so that's really nice. I prefer the thinner mast. I just think you can just feel it cutting through the water. So let's talk about the conditions some more that you need. I don't care how much it's nuking. If you're on a small lake like this, you're not going to ride much swell. It's just not going to happen. The wind chop doesn't really get big enough, steep enough, or have a long enough period and power behind it to really ride. If you're on a really big lake, like Lake Mojave, or like the Great Lakes or something like that, and it's nuking, then yeah, you'll be able to ride some swell. But you'll probably need a wide foil with, a lot of glide. It's not the same as the ocean. The ocean just has so much more drive behind it, especially the ground swell.
And I'm talking about swell that, is it a wave? Is it swell? But this is what I'm really talking about riding when you're starting out. Big, big swell.
Don't be discouraged if you get out there and you're trying to ride swell and you're like, I can't ride. It's not, maybe I need a better foil. It might just need better conditions. In the videos that I post, it'll be like, oh, it doesn't look that big, but it's because it's a super fisheye lens on the camera. All of these videos that I'm going to post are really pretty big swell. Like when you're riding out, it looks like head high swell coming in at you. That's the stuff that I ride. You can, sort of ride smaller stuff than that if you have a really glidey foil and you're pumping and you're lightweight, but usually you want the good conditions. There's also two different types of swell, like I talked about. There's sort of the ground swell, but there's also the wind swell, and it's almost two different things. As you get close into shore, you'll see the ground swell, and it's really long period, really powerful, and it eventually breaks into a wave. The wind swell is just like really big wind chop that's more erratic, and you have to sort of find your way through it. It's almost like a game of Frogger where you're looking for the openings. Some of the drone footage, like I think there's a really beautiful drone video of Josh Koo, and it just shows you how he's just riding these little channels. James Casey has a whole course on how to downwind that talks about riding the channels. So if you're interested in downwinding, check out his course. He's got all sorts of tips. I'm going to speak specifically to winging and how I do it. How did I learn how to ride swell? It really started when I did the dock starting video because I was having trouble with the pumping on the dock starting, so I took out the Access 1150 out to some flat water, and I just started practicing gliding on the 1150 and then pumping. And that was really when I first started to learn how to luff the wing while riding before incorporating that into the swell riding. It really helps to know how to pump a foil before you want to learn how to ride swell, because you're going to be pumping across sections with no power to get into like another section that does have power. You also want to know how to glide. You want to get the most out of your glide so you don't wear yourself out pumping. This is all going to be backwards from the way I do it because the wind is blowing this way and I'm facing that way. I went out to flat water with a big foil, and I would just ride along, and then as you're riding along, get some good speed, get up fairly high on the mast, and then take your hand, reach the backhand across, hold the wing out here, and just glide for a bit. And then as you start to slow down, pull it up, grab the front hand, grab the backhand, and repower. Practice that motion just a few times because you want to get comfortable with that. You're riding along, get some speed, grab the front hand, wing flags out. You just glide until you start to slow down, pull it forward again, and repower. Then start trying to pump a little bit. Get some power, reach the backhand of the luffing, and then as this goes back, start to do your pumping. And we'll talk about pumping a little bit and what works with that. If there's wind, like right now there's not very much wind. If there's wind, the wing will just float out there, okay? And as you're going forward, maybe just bring the wing a little bit back so that you get some apparent wind under it too, right? So you have the wind just going to hold the wing out, just the wind itself, and then your apparent wind and your apparent wind speed is going to keep the wing flying. I don't ever really have any problem with it. Occasionally, if I'm carving up the wave, you'll see in the videos, like maybe it'll flip over, which is not a big deal. If you have enough glide, you can flip it back over as you're gliding and then repower. Some people prefer just to sort of grab the front handle and let it luff from here. That's an okay way to start with your gliding and your luffing. You're not going to really be fully depowered, so that kind of helps. You do get a little bit more help from the wind, even just holding it like this. But maybe you feel more comfortable that you're able to repower and get going again. I prefer to completely luff it out, but, I just keep it, straight out. I don't have that many good tips for pumping. There's other videos on pumping that surf foilers have put out, and I think those are probably more helpful than my thoughts. I sort of just weight the front foot and then lift up with the back foot, and I try to keep my momentum going forward. I've even heard Matt Coase talk about pushing down with both legs and then unweighting the board, because you're not, every time you change the pitch of the foil, you're creating drag. So sometimes I will do that. Especially if I have wind power, I'll just kind of push both legs and unweight. But normally I find I have to do the down-up motion to really create lift and forward momentum.
This is that first session I was talking about, learning how to pump. At first, I actually used the wing to keep power and just practice pumping with the wing power. And then after that, I started trying to luff and just, have a very awkward pump, sort of creating forward momentum. But it was really windy that day, so that helped because I was able to get enough speed to go into the pump. By the end of the session, my pumping had improved quite a bit, and I only spent like an hour practicing this, but I had learned how to pump, and I could sustain like a 30-second pump.
If you're on a big foil and you're able to pump for like 30 seconds, then I think you're ready to go out into swell and try and ride swell. So what's my approach to getting on a swell and making it work? Surf foilers, they don't have any drag, so they can use smaller foils, and they're just they can go slow and they weigh like $130, most of them. A lot of us wingers are bigger, older, not as athletic. We have the wing, which creates drag. It really does. The wing slows you down when you're on the foil. So we need bigger swell, and then I like to go a little bit faster into the swell. If the wave are coming this way behind me, I start getting some speed, and I build that speed, and I try and get up on top or even with the wave, and then I try to drop in with speed onto the swell. That's when I luff the wing and start trying to ride the swell. Once you're on the swell, you have a couple of options. You can just stay on the one main swell you're on and keep riding that till it dies out and then repower. And yeah, maybe you'll get like a 10, 15 second ride. Or once you're on the swell, you can try to get speed by carving it up and staying in the pocket and then looking for little channels that are the path of least resistance to another either wind swell, small wind swell, or to speed across or pump across over the next swell and onto it. So we'll sort of show that in the videos that I'm going to talk about, but it's not like you're just getting on one piece of swell and just staying there forever. That's what I thought when I first started, but that's not realistic. You would have to have the perfect foil, the perfect conditions, everything matched, and it's not what happens. Usually when you see a good swell, it'll come in like a group of 3, right? So I'll be riding out over the swell, and then when I see like a big face, if I can turn around and jibe onto that face, I'll do it. But a lot of times I know that I'm going to be able to get the one behind it. So I'll see a big one and I'll get ready to turn. I'll start turning on that one, and then I'm in position. Once I turn around, the next one is coming. I gain my speed, and then I come over the shoulder, and I try to come with a lot of speed, right in on that one, and then I'm playing Frogger. What am I gonna do? Am I gonna ride this one? Am I gonna curve off to the right? Am I gonna curve onto the left and try and just keep riding this one? Do I see any channels and can I catch up to the next one? If I'm on a fast foil, I can catch up to the next swell and drop in again without ever repowering my wing. If I'm on a slow foil, then maybe I'm looking to even go back over this one and then onto the one behind it and then repower there. That's kind of what makes swell riding so fun, is you're sort of constantly looking and thinking and trying to find the path of least resistance. Or if you're like me, sometimes I'll just pump across to the next one and get going again. Depends on your foil. Slower, glidier foil, you can go slower and you can do, that kind of thing. Smaller, faster foil, you're going to want to go from one swell to the other. I was behind Matt Costa one time trying to keep up with him with the wing. I think he was on like a lift 90 or something, and he was just downwinding on a prone setup. I could not catch him. Even I was downwinding pretty fast with the wing. I could not catch him. He was moving so fast on that lift 90 with no drag from a wing. So that's where it gets really fun. Matching the foil to the conditions and figuring out how you're going to continue to downwind. If the conditions are good and you're on the right foil, you can literally downwind on a wing for miles and never repower the wing. I'm usually happy if I do over a minute. If I have I go out half mile or so and I try and glide the whole way in. And if I do the whole way without repowering the wing, that's a good conditions. All right, so I think that's about it to cover on the ground. And now let's show some video and see what kind of more tips we can add from there.
This is an example of the wrong gear for the conditions. The swell was an okay size, but it didn't have a lot of power behind it. And I'm on the 150, and I try and drop in here. I'm sort of getting pushed along, but I'm sort of not really keeping up with the swell. And I'm trying to pump, but I can't really pump that well on this foil to get across to the next section. And so I eventually stall out. If I was on the 170, it would have worked great. And especially like the 1050 HPS, I would have ridden this no problem. And here is an example of the wrong conditions. I'm on the 170 here, but as soon as I start luffing, I have to immediately pump if I want to keep moving. If not, I'll stall. And that's because it was very light wind, and this is only wind, chop, swell, and it didn't have any power. And when I put this wing behind me, you can see I'm moving faster than the wind swell here just because I have the wind power. But if I was on a big enough foil to theoretically ride this wind swell, I'd be moving too slow to keep up with it, and it just wouldn't work. I don't have the original of this video because I deleted it, but this is the Instagram clip. This is the 170 on pretty decent sized swell. It wasn't very windy this day, but it was at C Street, which has just good, powerful ground swell. And so there was really some pretty big, shoulders I could go down and gain speed on. But you'll notice with the 170, even if I do sort of slow down in some of these clips, I'm able to start pumping and get myself to another good section. So here you see me pumping and I'm kind of stalling, but then I get on the shoulder and I'm able to glide again as I drop down into the good bits. You'll also see on these runs, I'm moving the board a little bit more, looking for those channels, left, right. I throw a little shaka and I get ready to drop in again and I glide down the next shoulder and I kind of get behind it. So I got to pump myself up a little bit, get myself onto another good bit. And there it is. I'm able to glide down the next shoulder and find myself another good spot. And I just keep going. I bail off because I was getting closer to shore break. Now, this is an example of the Viper 150 on big swell. Look, I'm going over swell there. I promise you, in real life, this is big swell. And I'm looking ahead and I see a set coming in. Big old ground swell set. So I jibe. You can see right there by my chest, there's a big one coming. I try to jibe onto that. And like I said, I'm not going to get that one necessarily. But remember, they always come in packs. So look off to the left. See that dark water? There's another one coming. And I'm getting ready. I'm gaining speed because I know I need speed to drop in on it. I don't want to miss it. Here's the white caps. I get on top of the shoulder and I drop in. I drop in super fast on that 150, up to 26 miles an hour. I'm just booking it and I'm just in the pocket here. There's so much power. The small foil is great on it. Look how far ahead the next swell peak is. It must be 40 feet ahead of me. So these are big, long period ground swells. They're going to break eventually. See, it's breaking up ahead of me. And I don't want to deal with that on this day, so I just bail out before it gets to the breaking waves. But that's just awesome swell right there. And you can hear how stoked I am to get this ride. I'm telling you, video does not do the conditions justice, and it definitely doesn't capture how good it felt to drop in on those waves. Now, just this past week, I got on the 170 with it was no wind. The wind was so light, but there was some amazing ground swell at Cabrillo, which we never get. I'm already on the swell right now. You can't even tell because it's so big, but look how it's sort of drifting off to the right. Now, here you can see the shoulder come and look to the right. It's just a huge drop, and boom, I go down. I get to the right, I'm going left, and now as I cut back left, I see a big wall of water. I cut back right. Now I'm on a wave. This is a wave ride now. And like I said, sometimes the wing flips. I don't even worry about it. I just continue to ride because I don't want to get caught in that white water. And I'm able to flip the wing back over. It was just an awesome ride. So yeah, start out with the big foils and the light wind and the pumping, and then hopefully eventually you get to where you're blurring the line between swell riding and wave riding, and you get to experience as good a wave as this one was, because this was just so good, and I love it on the turnier foils. Really not just trying to go straight, but carving up a wave, and I want to keep progressing on that, and it's just such an awesome feeling. I hope you guys get out there and ride some swell. Let me know your thoughts on what you guys do and how it works out for you. And if you don't have good swell and waves in your area, come visit us in LA. I'll show you around.